Late last year, before I had even ridden West Coast racers, and in the midst of the coronavirus shutdown, I debuted my top 17 roller coasters list for Six Flags Magic Mountain. But what about the flat rides, the water rides, and all the other non-coaster rides? Contrary to popular belief, I actually find that this park has one of the best non-coaster ride lineups of the amusement parks in California. And after getting back to the park last month and getting to re-ride some old favorites, I've decided to kick off a series ranking the top amusement rides at the parks I've been to. So I figured that starting things off with Six Flags Magic Mountain would be a great idea because, like I said, I just got to get back there. But with that being said, I'd like to ask before we begin if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like these. But enough of that, let's dive right into my top 20 overall rides at the thrill capital of the world, Six Flags Magic Mountain. Number 20, Gold Rusher. Built in 1971, this coaster actually opened with the park, and still it's maintained so well and is one of my favorite Aero Mine Train coasters. Something about the classic feel of this thing really has me appreciating it every single time I ride. And with the park with as many rides and coasters as this one, it's not like I ride it every visit. But this past trip to the park following the reopening, I did get to ride it and I actually had a pretty fun time with it. So if you like your classic rides, I'd highly recommend Gold Rusher. Number 19, New Revolution. Like with Gold Rusher, I do not ride Revolution often at all, but when I do, I'm always able to appreciate the original layout and overall fun ride experience. With an opening dating back to '76 and the world's first modern-day vertical loop on here, it's a pretty classic coaster as well. And while it doesn't pull any extraordinary forces, like I said, it's just fun to get on it from time to time. The setting is great and the ride is maintained pretty dang well. So yeah, Revolution, definitely a fun ride. Number 18, Jetstream. Moving on over to our first non-coaster attraction of the list, Jetstream is an aero log flume that's very old, but again is still holding up well. If you ride Jetstream and have ridden a lot of other log flumes, then you might not be very impressed with it. Especially if you are used to highly themed log flumes like Splash Mountain at Disneyland or Timber Mountain Log Ride at Knott's Berry Farm. But I'm not trying to compare something like Jetstream to those amazing rides. What I am going to say is that on its own, Jetstream is a fun, relaxing flume and it's actually one of the best I've ridden away from the theming aspects. Number 17, Ninja. Yet another Aero classic, Ninja is a suspended coaster, one of the last ones remaining in fact, and it's a really solid ride. I'd actually nearly call it my favorite as I almost like it just as much as Vortex at Canada's Wonderland. I really love the layout and how it hugs the side of the mountain, working its way all the way down and then utilizing that lift hill at the end that takes you back up to the station. I'll admit that the setting isn't as great as it used to be since a lot of the trees in the area have been chopped down, but aside from that, I've always really liked Ninja for what it's worth. It's a great family coaster. Number 16, Goliath. If you are watching this as someone who is part of the general public and who isn't much of a roller coaster enthusiast, then you're probably confused to see Goliath so low on the list. After all, this was a record smasher when it opened, and it's one of the absolute tallest coasters in all of California. The issue I personally have with Goliath is that it's such a waste of a hypercoaster. Other than the double helix at the end of the ride, which is actually really intense, there is literally no force to be found anywhere on this coaster. The drop is shallow, so no airtime going down that. The turnaround following it is an awful turnaround, no forces anywhere, and the floater hill after that does not give any floater. And then following this, the second half is all meandery with the exception of the aforementioned helix finale. So in my eyes, this is just a poorly designed hypercoaster, and as long as Goliath is at the park filling in that hyper gap, we'll never be able to see anything better with this coaster genre at the park. Number 15, Justice League Battle for Metropolis. To brighten things up a little bit, let's touch on Justice League, the absolute best iteration of the clone dark rides that have been sprinkled around the Six Flags parks. This ride has a lot of cool effects, some decent statues and animatronics, and some really fun screens. I will say that it feels quite fast-paced compared to most Disney or Universal dark rides, so just keep that in mind if it's your first time on it. But if I had to sum up this ride to the best of my ability, I'd say that it's the Six Flags equivalent of something like Transformers at Universal. But overall, it's a pretty fun ride, just nothing more. Number 14, Scream. From here, you'll be hearing the words underrated quite a bit. I have never once understood the outcrying of hate that Scream receives every single time a coaster enthusiast rides it. Yes, I feel the rattle on occasion, and it does get buried in the lineup, but most B&Ms have a sort of rattle and you just can't really escape it. But my issue is that a lot of people say it ruins the ride, and I think that's pathetic. And about the notorious parking lot setting. Okay, yeah, it does not add to the experience, but I also don't see how it worsens the experience. Twisted Colossus is just as much of a parking lot coaster as Scream, and you never hear people talking trash about that ride. So to me, a lot of backlash that this coaster receives is quite unfair. Now with that being said, I wouldn't say it's a must-experience attraction every visit to the park. There are many other rides here that are worth your time more, especially because this coaster isn't the most original. But please, keep an open mind next time you ride Scream and stop trashing on it so much because it really just makes no sense. Number 13, Superman Escape from Krypton. Another underrated coaster, probably even more underappreciated than Scream, is one of 3 stratocoasters on planet Earth. This means a coaster that stands between 400 and 499 feet tall. And I've heard arguments that the trains never reach 400 feet and therefore it shouldn't really count as a stratocoaster, but since the park reopened from its long COVID closure, the ride has been running better than it ever has. Seriously, I've never seen it happen before, but the ride is now getting significantly past the red section every single time. So if you are one of those people that like to trash on Superman, give it a ride now and get back to me after. Also make sure that the ride is in the front row because like the other stratocoasters, this thing makes a huge difference in those seats than in any other. Number 12, West Coast Racers. As much as I actually really enjoyed this coaster, I couldn't find it in me to put it any higher on the list because the rides above it mean so much to me. But please keep in mind that from this point on, from spots 12 all the way to 4, just about any of these attractions can flip-flop in my rankings on any given day. They are all stupidly close in quality, and I just wanted to have you guys be aware of that. Now, as for West Coast Racers itself, it's received criticism for its long delays, which aren't looking so long anymore, but aside from that factor, the actual ride experience caught me by surprise. I rode in the front row for my first ride and thought it was a super enjoyable coaster. The high fives were excellent, the pacing was decent, and the inversions provided some good hang time. But at the end of the day, as a hardcore thrill seeker, I don't think that this coaster is going to cater to me as much as some of the other rides in the park. For what it's worth though, this coaster is really fun. It doesn't exactly make sense in the park's lineup, but again, just by itself, it's a really fun coaster. Number 11, Viper. As much as I've mentioned this in videos before, it's important to me to highlight the past experiences I've had with Viper to give you an understanding of what it means to me. Back in 2018, I would have told you that this was one of the worst coasters I've ridden and possibly the worst steel coaster I'd ridden. But now, after so much TLC has been given to this attraction, it's actually amazing. It has had one of the biggest 180s in my life as a coaster enthusiast because I went from hating it to loving it faster than I could have ever imagined. The layout is absolutely monstrous, the inversions are intense, and the ride has a nice balance of fast pacing in the first half and slow hang time in the second. So without question, this is one of the best aero looping coasters in the entire world. I cannot recommend Viper enough if you're into the most intense and aggressive rides. Go give it a shot. Number 10, Riddler's Revenge. Just barely edging out Viper on the list, this Bollinger and Mabillard stand-up coaster is without question the best coaster of this ride type anywhere in the world. On occasion, I do hear arguments for Georgia Scorcher at Six Flags Over Georgia, but I'm sorry, I can't see it, not even a little bit. I have, however, had the chance to ride the second largest B&M stand-up coaster, Green Lantern, at Six Flags Great Adventure, and even with that ride being quite underrated, it can't hold a candle to Riddler's. Riddler's Revenge is unbelievably intense and unbelievably loud. You can hear it making a name for itself just about anywhere in the back half of the park. But one of my favorite things about the ride is its sheer scale. A lot of the elements on this ride, while really fun, are not the most creative, but to see them this large is shocking. Every time I see this ride in person, it blows my mind because I just can't believe Six Flags used to order large B&Ms like these. But anyways, yeah, awesome ride, and as long as you know how to ride it, I'd for sure recommend it. Number 9, Lex Luthor Drop of Doom. After a lot of massive roller coasters, let's look into another direction and talk about some massive flat rides. Lex Luthor is so close from being my favorite drop tower in the world, but I just can't do that to Falcon's Fury, so I have to leave it at number 2. But even then, this ride is amazing. It's easily one of the best flat rides I've ever ridden. The view is excellent, the drop is so intense, and the anticipation with the on-ride audio is the cherry on top. Plus, you get bonus points if Superman shoots up the tower while you're riding and shakes the thing a little bit. That is one of the most terrifying experiences ever on any ride, I swear to God. So it was great getting back on this thing last month, and yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. It's a great flat ride. Number 8, CraZanity. Opening in 2018 as the world's tallest pendulum ride, this ride still holds onto the record alongside a couple others who tie in. But even though there are so many popping up around the Six Flags parks nowadays, I almost don't even mind. I love these flat rides, and I really enjoy having it as an option when I get around to other parks in the chain. 3 things you've got to know about these things. 1, they go high, really freaking high. 2, you'll get a lot of floater airtime at the peak. And 3, the speed falling back down to earth is ridiculous. And also, bonus points if you can get a nighttime ride because the light package is incredible. But other than that, I have nothing much to add. I'm sure a lot of you can speak from experience here anyway, since these are all over the place, but yeah, CraZanity is awesome. Number 7, Dive Devil. Alright, I bet 99% of you guys watching this video were not expecting to see Dive Devil on here. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this ride, it's the park's Sky Coaster attraction. These are flat rides that put you in a suit and then pull you up and then you tug on a ripcord which sends you flying back down. These are at parks and even family entertainment centers all over the globe, and it's not like Magic Mountains is special, but it was my first time trying one out. I had never ridden one of these before because they are almost always upcharge attractions, along with the Slingshot, which by the way I have not ridden and therefore is not on the list, so that's one of 2 upcharge attractions in the park. But I'm so glad I fell through with utilizing the deal to ride it twice at the price of once. This was an experience I'll never forget, pulling the ripcord to fly through the sky with nothing more than like a life jacket looking thing keeping me secured. And unless you're willing to spend a lot of money, I actually would not recommend this thing because there's better sky coasters out there that are actually cheaper. However, I am really glad I got on Dive Devil because it taught me that sky coasters are absolutely fantastic. Number 6, Batman the Ride. Moving on over to the DC Universe section of the park, this is one of those B&M inverted Batman clones, which like the giant discoveries can be found at many other Six Flags parks across the globe. But this Batman clone, I'd argue, is the best one. Well, I don't want to say it's the very best because I don't want to jump to conclusions about the one at Six Flags Over Georgia, which receives a stupid amount of praise. But if that one actually runs faster than this one, I'll actually be shocked, let me just put it that way. This particular Batman clone maintains its speed so well until the end of the ride. Like, I've ridden other Batman clones, and even they seem to slow down a little towards the end. But no, not this one. This thing blazes through its compact layout, and for that I love getting a ride on it whenever I can. As of my visit last month, it was down due to a repaint, but I hear it's back open and running better than ever. If you're planning on going to the park soon, do not forget to give Batman a ride or two. Just because it's a clone does not mean it isn't an incredible attraction. Number 5, Apocalypse. Without a doubt, Apocalypse is one of the most underrated wooden roller coasters in the entire world. I don't know why I haven't talked more about this ride on the channel, and I'm not sure why so few enthusiasts rave about it. From my many rides post-refurbishment, Apocalypse is absolutely out of control. This thing rides phenomenally and really sets the stage to how all GCIs should ride. It's in that perfect middle ground between smooth and rough, as it runs great but still has a bite to it. This is a wonderful complement to the incredible pacing and sequence of elements found on the ride. So many of the transitions too are executed to perfection, and thus I find this to be a fantastic GCI. After a rewrite last month, I'd say this is actually my second favorite GCI, above Texas Stingray and just below Ghost Rider. Because keep in mind, I haven't run in Gold Striker, Mystic Timbers, or Renegade yet, but regardless, I love this coaster and I could not recommend it enough. Number 4, Full Throttle. A lot of people love this ride for its hang time, which yes is pretty freaking good, but I tend to like it for its many surprises. Elements that no one talk about, like the astounding last drop, positive G's on the dive loop, and powerful third launch that flash you out of the tunnel. Plus that backwards bit with the music blaring is always fun too. But yeah, this is one of those rides that has always gotten a lot of criticism and I don't exactly know why. Yes, I know it's a short coaster, but it's surprising how much it packs into its layout. I will admit that it could fall a few spots in the future if the coasters behind it keep running as well as they are, but it'll never not like this ride like a lot of people. I think Full Throttle is great and that most parks wish they had something like this. Number 3, Tatsu. Until the supposed Jersey Devil type RMC Raptor opens soon, I don't think this top 3 can change for me at all. Tatsu clocking it at the number 3 spot makes it my favorite coaster of this genre. Obviously, I haven't ridden Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan or Starry Sky Ripper at World Joyland yet, but I think this is easily the best ride of its type in North America. I absolutely love the scale of Tatsu, I love the sensation of flight, I love all the graceful inversions, and I love the pretzel at mid-ride that tries to kill you. Riding this coaster is a great atmosphere in general because you feel like you're on top of the world. I cannot stress enough how high in the air you are, it's actually pretty insane. So considering that the B&M Flyer is my guilty pleasure coaster model, it should be no surprise how much I absolutely adore Tatsu. Number 2, Twisted Colossus. Oh my gosh, this ride is amazing. I forgot just how incredible it was after 500 days without riding it. The layout is masterful, the fact that you get to do it twice is amazing, and that leads into the dueling aspect. The dueling is so much fun when timed right, and despite what some say, I don't think it actually ruins the ride experience, because you still have an impeccable layout to look forward to. I will, however, say that racing the other train is the cherry on top and really gives this ride character. Plus, the ejector airtime on this coaster launches you out of your seat so powerfully. It is ridiculously strong. It's like RMC knew that they had to make an unbelievable revamp to the legend that was the original Colossus. And on that note, I know the OG Colossus was loved by so many, but if you ride the new version and compare, you cannot possibly be upset at the change. The ride still has the same heart and soul of the original, only now the ride experience is matched with the other amazing attractions that this park has to offer. But man, I could rave about this thing for hours, but I'll wrap things up by saying this. At almost any other amusement park, this would be their best coaster by far, but the fact that there's something crazier in this park is insane. Cue the number 1 spot. Number 1, X2. I absolutely love Airtime, but you want to know what else I love? Intensity. Feeling like I'm going to run out of breath, feeling like I'm going to die on a ride. That's what I want. X2, man, this freaking ride, it literally tries to commit homicide. It's ridiculous. This insane coaster is almost too crazy of an experience to describe, but I'll try my best. But of course, obviously, the best thing you can do is ride it yourself to understand what I'm talking about. Firstly, you should know that this isn't going to be a ride for everyone. If you aren't too big on intense and out-of-control experiences, you'll probably like Twisted Colossus or maybe even Tatsu more than this. But as a hardcore coaster enthusiast who's into the most extreme ride experiences, X2 is right up my alley. The flipping that it does is absolute madness, the elements are aggressive and jostling, and the speed is the perfect complement of this. But with that said, I've actually already said enough. Come out and ride it if you haven't already. This coaster is unexplainable and it's absolutely phenomenal. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. I hope you all enjoyed with my list and gained some interest in the rides here that not many people like to talk about, as well as gain more appreciation for the rides that a lot of people do like to talk about. I also hope that you all agreed with the rankings and get out to the park to check out some of the amazing rides that it has to offer. Now with that being said and done, I'll see you guys all in my next video. Bye guys.